session, you have a clear idea of what is needed to make a clear, focused proposal. And of course, these are general skills for any kind of proposal writing. So hopefully you'll pick up some ideas. And if you have ideas yourself that you'd like to share, tips from your career, please do. We all come from different perspectives and different career stages. So there's not one way of doing this. So I'm going to start with the introductions. I'm Tina Saarinen. I'm the chair of IAPT's grants at the moment. The grants committee is quite a large group now. It's about 33 people from across the world. Many people like you at different career stages. And there are some members here with me today, so I'll let them introduce themselves. And I'm originally Finnish, so if I sound native English speaker, I am not, but I try my bestest. And I'm now based in Scotland, in Royal Botanic Garden, Edinburgh. So now passing on to other workshop leaders to introduce themselves. And I'd like you to focus on your role on IAPT and where you're based and where you're from, and then pass on to the next person. So I'm going to give you the order of, so first Ana Paula Fortuna, and then Gustavo Shimizu, and then Ajit Ashokan, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here and for this webinar. My name is Ana Paula Fortuna Pérez. I am a professor at São Paulo University, State University, Unesp from Brazil. And I am a curator of the Botu Herbarium in the same university. I am a member of the IPT Grants Committee and of the Committee of the Institutional Votes. I had a proposal approved in the IAPT small collection grants that was entitled Digitalization, Database Supporting and Maintenance of the Material in the Botu Herbarium. And my research is focused mainly in Angiosperms, leguminous family, and mainly in the taxa that occur in nootropics. I think that's it. I think it's Gustavo, the next.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's really nice to see familiar faces and new ones. You are all welcome to join this discussion and those sections. I'm Gustavo Shimizu from Brazil, in Campinas. I work on Vocaceae taxonomy, angiosperm taxonomy, and systematics and nomenclature. And for the IAPT, I run the social media accounts, and I'm a member of the grants committee and the communications committee as well. As Tina said before, you are very free to say in any language that we can try to have a nice discussion and good conversation with everyone. So I'll pass to Ajit. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. I'm Ajit Ashokan. I'm new to the IAPT Grants Committee. I started working this year. Currently, I work as a postdoc in University of Naples Federico II in Italy. I look forward to having all the good things. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Ajit. So now I'd like to pass to John Lastimoso, who's joined us as one of the last year's winners. And if Dipanwita or Anneka or Jenny Baukar are in the audience, then after John, you too. So first to John.
Hi, everyone. I'm John, and I currently work at the Marine Science Institute in the Philippines. And my field of study is mainly on the systematics of macroalgae, and specifically the tropical ones. And I'm a fairly new member in the IAPT. And last year, I applied for the research grant. And my topic revolved around fixing the quite problematic taxonomy of Sargassum, especially here in the tropics.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. And do we have any of the three in the audience. So if anybody joins who has already won, please do then put your hand up. I understand that it's hard often to make the exact time.
Yeah. Hi, this is Dipanita Banik from
brilliant.
Jorhat, Assam. So yeah, I got the grant last time. I'm working here as a senior principal scientist now in CSIL lab. So my work mostly focuses agapetes of the family Ericaceae, then Myristicaceae, tropical plant. So I work on chemical characterization and then processing, value addition of plant and plant systematics, and also in DNA barcoding. Yeah. Thank you.
And it was the research grant or the small collections grants?
Yeah. This is a small collection grant because we have a herbaria which is like established in 1961, and we registered in 2022, and it is a great help for us to got the grant, and already we have procured two Almira herbarium cabinet from this grant. We have got all the barcode labels, and we are in the process of digitization. It is a great help, and we are remounting lot of sheets and planning to ship them in BSI duplicates. And also we are doing like teaching students from school, college, then other academic institute, and lot of institute, they need to deposit their specimen here so that they can get the accession number and go for publication. So PhD student and research people also. So all the academician and research students also, we provide those collections number, and we keep their herbarianship. Like
Fantastic.
nicely.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And what about Jenny or Aneka? Anika Gafoor or Jenny Baukar? If you have joined us, do stand up and introduce. In the absence of the two, if they do turn up, that's fantastic.
Sorry, Tina, I think Anika is the HP.
Ah, great.
Anika?
Can you listen me? Can you hear
We
me?
can hear you very faintly, yes. Go ahead.
Hello, I am Anika Kapoor from Institute of Botany, University of the Punjab, Lahore. And last year I won a research grant from IAPT, which is focused on the systematic diversity, distribution, and conservation of the genus Morcella from Kagan Valley, Pakistan. Basically, I'm a mycologist, and my field of specialization is the fungal taxonomy and to systematically characterize the indigenous mushrooms of Pakistan and to conserve them in the local herbarium. And last year that I won research grant is basically focused on the genus Morcella from Kagan Valley, to study their distribution pattern, their systematics, and then conserve in local and international herbarium. And I extremely grateful for IAPT to help me as an early career researcher. It is a great opportunity for me to conduct this project as an independent researcher, but with the help of my collaborator, as a mentor, as a collaborator. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Anik. I fear Jenny may not be amongst us, but last call for Jenny. Maybe not. So raise your hands if you do see her. But meanwhile, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to give a short introduction to the two grant types and a few words about generality of proposal writing. And then we're going to go into kind of examples of and challenges from previous submissions that were not successful, that we are going to walk through how to make them better as an example of constructive criticism, so that you see actual physical examples of what mistakes people do and how they can make it better. So without further ado, here we go. So the two types of grants IAPT is currently giving include the research grants, which we had some examples. So these are for early career researchers with up to 1 year experience after a PhD. So you don't need to have any academic degrees. You may be undergraduate, you may be master's level, you may be PhD, but you can't be more than 1 year post-PhD. and it is to do with carrying out herbarium or research visits to do with taxonomy. And this is plant, fungal, and algal projects. And it can include fieldwork or these visits and research. And the focus is really to around systematics, nomenclature, and floristics. So that closes at the end of January, and the individual award would be $2,000. Then we have small collections grants, and these are to support small herbaria or algal or fungal collections with up to 100,000 specimens. And they generally are to do with digitizing collections, processing specimen backlogs, curating collections, conserving specimens, mounting, and so on, and sending duplicates to kind of back up, to safety duplicate your collections. The closing date is slightly later, it's at the end of February, and the individual awards are now up to $3,000, right? That's a change from last year. The general steps in grant writing, there's different ways of expressing it, but I think it really,
Sorry.
what we emphasize. Yeah.
Sorry, Tina. I guess it's not sharing the screen.
Oh, it's not sharing.
No. Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry. Because it gives you that, it gives me this color around them. Okay, something's, how am I gonna make it share? Share, cancel, oh, here. Apologies for this, because it gives me these numbers. And now if I say share, it gives me these options of 1, 2, 3, and I don't know how to accept one or the other.
1, 2, 3 windows, or
yeah, like it gives me, it labels my windows, but it doesn't share it based on what you're saying.
Let me try.
One multiple link in advanced sharing.
I have entire screen and application windows as options.
Yeah, because somehow it gives me this. Oh, how am I gonna get over this?
Do you want me to share the presentation?
I think, screen 1, no, yeah, this is not, here, shared sound, content only. Screen 1, okay, I think I found the option, and if I now say share, I think I'm there. And
yes,
now if I say presenter, now if I say present, how about now?
Yeah,
I
it's
think
fine.
I managed to find it. Apologies. So I just wanted to emphasize these are the slides I was just showing here, but if that was clear to you, hopefully with my words. So apologies for that. Thank you, Gustavo, so much.
No problem.
So the general steps are here given as 6. The emphasis is really to say, make it a stepwise process to make you yourself feeling like you're getting somewhere, and think about these particular items and try to do the revision bit where you get feedback. So those are the take-home messages from this structure of 6 balls. And you could write it as a list. And if we write it as a list, it's really good to emphasize points that always read very carefully what we are wanting to fund, because you have to match to that. And develop your idea so that it matches the budget, the maximum budget on offer, and what we are looking for. And then plan who's involved, who's part of your team, and who do you want to collaborate. These both types of calls in IAPT are really wanting collaborative proposals. And once you write the first draft, start it maybe once you have this clear idea of what you want to include, and check then against the grant announcement that you're hitting all the points needed. And then get comments from your peers, supervisors, mentors to make it even better. And when we talk about these 6 steps, what we're really emphasizing in each step is these little points that I'm going to raise now. So at the very beginning, when you look at the grant call, look at previous examples. On our website, we give examples of previous projects, what has been funded, like the people here sharing their grants. You can see what kind of things, how they verbalized it, perhaps, idea of who they collaborated, what it was like, the successful grants. And then in the second point, we're emphasizing looking at the objectives, budget, and timeline and making them matching. So it's an iterative process where you first think, I want to conquer the world. Then you realize, oh, my budget is only $2,000. So maybe not the whole world, maybe just one site that has 4 endemic species. I'm going to go there and collect them because with those 4 species, I can make a local flora that is then complete. Great. So I have my outputs, I have my objective, and the budget matches and timeline, I can make that now work. So if you can see that as a kind of iterative process of 3 items, then you got your idea that works for that call. And if you want to visualize that, it means that you're looking at the objective, conquering the world, realizing that timeline-wise, you can't do that in a year and nor in the budget. So perhaps the objective then has to be something more humble, and then that means you revise it to be different. So it's just to emphasize that interaction between these 3 items. And then I'm trying to put my cursor into this visual, but I may not have succeeded. Then in the step number 3 is, who will you interact? So you might want to, like one of our lovely grantees was mentioning that you want to bring school kids because you have a relationship with existing schools around your institutions. You want to bring them in to learn about the project and the herbarium that you work in, to give an interaction of kind of outreach of extending your herbarium to people living around it. So you want to interact with that crowd, add it in your project, add it in your timeline. Perhaps you want to work with a collaborator in a research grant where there's an expert in the capital, you're based in a more regional area, you want to visit the expert and that local herbarium because you can then exchange knowledge, learn, visit other duplicates to understand taxonomy of a group X. And then collecting permits. This is really where you want to mention, do you have them in place already? Do you not? Consider them somewhere and express it in your project proposal. Then in number 4, when you develop the full draft, this is now considering how you've developed the idea in step number 2, add the detail. So this is really where you need to say how, what, when. So really try to think the detail so that it doesn't sound too vague. So in these common AI times, you can make things sound really good, but the detail isn't there. And we'll show you examples of that. And then revise is really to go back, read through your draft critically and see, does it match the idea? Do you talk about how you're going to sort the nomenclature and types, but actually in your draft, you're not mentioning how you're going to find them or at what point? The timeline doesn't mention finding the types. So then does everything match? Have you used a figure? So often really amazingly useful thing is to see a figure of your study organism, even a figure of the current state of the herbarium, the issue you're going to fix in this grant, maybe the old cupboards or poor condition of the herbarium specimens, something like that. You could add a figure and it definitely helps. The reviewers get a much better understanding in a single figure of the question at hand, the challenge, or what you're wanting the money for. And in the final stage, really try to have time to send it to somebody to get ideas. So this could be by email. So we don't ask any more references, but we'd like you to use those people you'd like to consider as people writing your reference for as a feedback opportunity. So send this proposal to them, say, instead of asking, could you be my reference? Now ask, could you give me little feedback before I submit my proposal? Would you back me up? So that is our current encouragement. So now I'd like to introduce the two types of grants and really explain what they are about. So the Small Collections Grant is very special. It's one of the only funds globally supporting small collections. So these could be herbaria, fossil collections, fungal or algal collections. And the reason for this is, the reason IAPT really considers this as a priority is that small herbaria make an outsized contribution to our understanding of biodiversity. And I know we often hear about big names, type-rich collections. Of course, they are valuable. They're immensely important as they are source of types. But these small and in-country herbaria, as I would often call them, they are immensely important and they're often not digitally available. And people may consider areas devoid of collections when in fact they are rich in these small and in-country herbaria that are not digitized. And we want to change that. We want to help to change that. But obviously, this is a big challenge. So we understand that this is where the good stuff is at, but we need to really help them to be stable, to have their collections in good condition. The aim is to support and enhance these collections, but they have to be in Index Herbariorum to qualify, right? Just to emphasize, we are needing collections to be already in Index Herbariorum as established collections. And the items that you can apply for funding include digitizing, curating, processing backlogs, shipping duplicates, conserving specimens, and mounting important collections. Common errors. So often we as humans learn from errors. It's very easy to criticize. So let's have a chance of looking at it, but we're trying to be constructive. So this is based on data. This is what we see as reviewers, where people are missing an opportunity to get a grant. So people often forget to give context to their collections. They are so proud of them. They are so in them that they forget to say, we are one of the most amazing collections of this really regionally rich biodiversity hotspot, right? They forget to say we house types of this very important person, or we house collections from this person who was specialist in poaceae, and hence these are really important for understanding of flora of Argentina, as an example. Provide that. Give us an understanding. Why are you proud of your collections? Make that the first thing you mention, right? And we're going to practice this. Identify small enough products that can be your objective for that grant, that you can do in a year. So don't try to aim to conquer the world. Try to think, what can I do in a year, right? But it's not always that bigger wins. No, if it looks realistic, the reviewers are going to find it doable. We can give what you're asking. If you're asking for this and we can only give this, we start feeling this is not a good match, right? Then provide details. So for example, people often say, we are going to database and we're going to digitize, but they don't mention we're going to digitize using equipment X, what kind of camera, and what resolution are you going to take those images at? Because those are things that matter actually when you use the images. As a herbarium scientist, I'd like to know, is it going to be what resolution? Mention those details. If your objective is to database your specimens, meaning just the label data, the text, then mention where. Are you just going to use Excel? That's fine. Then say so. Are you going to use Excel and then use a particular way of filtering so that there's no errors in species names? Are you going to take the species names as a kind of restricted field from, let's say, World Flora Online or Plants of the World Online? Mention that detail. Again, that's going to give us an impression you've really thought about this. You're going to do it because you've thought about it. Whereas if you just say, we're going to database, we're going to digitize everything, it sounds maybe too vague, right? Maximize collaboration, training, and engagement where you can. So work with students. Mention that these are students who are going to do the work. You're going to employ students, or you're going to use students who need to do their work practice as part of their curriculum, or express that there's local community interested, so we're going to work with them. So add that detail of who's going to do the work and who's going to maybe interact with in terms of not paid, but they're going to be brought in to understand what you're doing. And remember to think, can you send duplicates out? If you can add a little budget for sending duplicates out to the capital, to neighboring country, what we're finding, at least in South America, where I work a lot, and I look at herbaria, what I find a lot is that countries don't have money to send from this herbarium, from country X, to the neighboring, to very close by herbarium, but across the border, because that's just not what commonly is done. The species cross that border. It would be important to see collections from both herbaria, both sides of the national border, to understand that that is the same organism, and perhaps different countries are using different names. This is where exchange of duplicates, either within a country or across national borders, is really important. I can kind of see how that hasn't been done commonly, but here we are giving funds to enable that. So if you have duplicates to distribute, include it. And the last point is perhaps saying what I already said, that detail. Explain your products and impact clearly. What is your output? Is it going to be the database? Because you're going to database, so the database is the product. And where are you going to share it? And we always encourage, don't make your own website. That often isn't doable within the funds. But use aggregators like GBIF is an example, but there are many national and regional data aggregators. There's Australasian virtual flora website, or the virtual herbarium. And there in Latin America, there is Crea Species Link as an example. So think about how you can make your data be part of something bigger, because you often get tools to clean if you do that, and you learn something about your collections and you make them visible. So I would always encourage that. Not always possible because of other issues, but where possible, please consider. The documents you need is IAPT membership. And just to emphasize, only those with a membership can apply and access that portal where you have to submit your application. So remember to do the membership early enough to not struggle with the deadline, is my advice this year. You need a budget on a separate sheet, and you need a proposal on 2 pages max, again, as a separate document, and CV. And the proposal has these parts: objectives, plan, and timetable. We had specific questions about budget, and it is a really good point to emphasize. So I have put here one example. This is from a winning application, and it shows you the kind of detail people submit and we consider adequate. So they've used a template where we give these items and we have left other items. This person has taken the template as it is and added detail. So where it said camera equipment for digitization, they've added detail flash macro and the cost. Barcode scanner and barcode printer, there's no more detail, but there's a cost. And here, external hard drive, again, with detail of what capacity and what is the cost per unit. So you can see that they are roughly buying 2 of these, right? So this is the kind of level we are expecting for the grant. Please save completed budget as a PDF before uploading, and use your surname, your family name as the first part of the file name. These again help us a lot and the system to cope with the files you're submitting, so there's no errors. Any questions about small collections, feel free to put in the chat box, and I'll open now to Gustavo or Ana Paula if you see anything in the chat box, questions or hands coming up about these types of grants.
No.
Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
They can come later because we're going to go through examples, so feel free to then jump in later.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to move on to research grants. So these are now much more for kind of taxonomic, solving a taxonomic problem, I would call them. They can be floristic. They could be nomenclatural too, right? And these are for early career researchers. So these can entail travel to other institutions. This can be within a country, across country borders. It can involve laboratory work in either molecular or chromosome work or anatomical work. Herbarium visits are very common and it's so needed in taxonomy that this is bulk of the work, and some aspects of field work, or combination of little bit of this, that, and the other. We particularly encourage this combination of where there's like a visit to a major herbarium where there is an expert already or really core collections for the group, and then interacting with that. So networking or building that mentorship, spurring future work and building capacity. Things to focus. So I call these common errors, things that are left out. But I know everybody knows the answer to their own project, but they forget to mention it. So provide the context. Why is the group intriguing, interesting? Why is it still a problem? And identify small enough products. So a very common issue in research grants is that you are currently a PhD student. You mentioned the entire PhD in your proposal, and that is an error, I would say. It is great to hear that you're currently a PhD student and your PhD is this, but in the context of this proposal, you need to say, this proposal is seeking for $2,000 to solve problem X. I want to hear that. I am interested in your PhD, if that is what you're doing, but you need to express in this proposal, what is this proposed money for, right? That has to come bright and clear. And that is so common. Omission. And be realistic. Taxonomy is hard. So you can identify some very small problem that can be fixed, solved, enhanced within a year with $2,000. Maximize collaboration, so that exchange of knowledge people. And that can be in-country, regionally, or globally. Obviously, because we are a global funder, when we see that there's a regional exchange going on, it's so valuable for us because we know national funding doesn't always cover that. National funding is to do this in country X. And we are wanting to provide the alternative, like a different complementary funding to beyond the national funding. So hence that regionally and globally is bolded, is to say this fund can be used for that. So enjoy that, try to use that to your maximum. Explain products and impact. So say very clearly what that $2,000 that you're applying for is going to produce. It could be a paper. It could be an online key published online. There's great softwares now freely available that enable this. Things like that, or maybe a rapid picture guide published in a particular language. Great. But be clear what it is, because the whole product from your PhD is not the same as the product from this grant of the $2,000. The things you need again is the IAPT membership. Again, this will be behind the paywall, so you need to be a member to actually access the submission portal, where the proposal is then actually finally sent to us. You need a budget on similar form. The proposal, this is now 3 pages max, and the CV. And the budget is the same kind of templates, and we'll look at examples of. So this is just the empty template. So you see the same as before, but there's nothing filled. We just provide this template as example items that you may want to consider. So practice makes all of us a master, always a little bit better. So I have thought that the best way to do this is to provide you examples that I will ask you to think for a minute, to be the most critical reviewer you can imagine, that I'm provide you an example. This is direct from a submitted proposal, anonymized. So I've taken the herbarium code out, and I'm asking you, how could these objectives they provided for the small collections grant, so this is small collections grant, how could they be better? What are they missing? How could they be better? You can put them in the chat box, or just write them on a little piece of paper, or think about what would you do. How would you enhance this answer? And I'm going to give you the answer in a bit, what I think, but obviously everybody might have different views. So feel free then to raise your hand and add more ideas. Okay. So hopefully the clocks are turning. So this is a classic case where you can really add some background, context. You can be proud of your collections just here, right? You may think, oh, but you were asking for objectives. Is this the right place to do it? I say yes, because you must be proud of your collections. You know the answer. You could say, instead of saying reviewing and updating taxonomic classification of vascular plants at the herbarium X, great, but I have no idea why X is important or exciting, right? So you could say the herbarium, reviewing and updating taxonomic classification of vascular plants at the herbarium X, which contains X number of collections from so-and-so area, from poorly collected region with only so-and-so many collections available digitally in GBIF, or whatever, some context, right? Yes, you're going to use more words, but why not? This is a good place to do it, right? That would be my one thing. That's like definitely worth it. Then I have added 2 more points. Avoid repetition. You're saying reviewing and updating. That's kind of the same, right? So you can cut words there to add them into the context. Because if you really try to, this isn't the kind of AI fluff I call it. Yeah, it sounds good reviewing and updating while you're doing 2 things. But actually, if you think about it, it's just the same thing, right? So it's really being a bit better than AI and thinking, okay, reviewing and updating is one thing. So I'm going to, let's say, systematize the collections, create them following detail, APG4, or current country flora, or, right? Give the detail, updating to what, right? And in the case of the 3rd bullet point, we're talking about a virtual herbarium. You're creating a virtual herbarium. It's quite vague. So it's good. It's one step somewhere, but let's think detail. So best to say specimen database available online with images. If that is the case, you may maybe only be able to put the database, the actual text data available online. Well, be clear, right? There's nothing bad about being able to put a text database online. And then what's missing there is how, through what portal. And again, for you to write a website or write an entire set up a virtual herbarium for small collections, that's a big task. And how is that sustainable? But it might be much more doable if you contribute the data to an aggregator. So if you send your data to Australasian Virtual Herbarium, it's much easier for you and it's in a bigger context. And you often get that data back of maybe misspellings in your species names, country names, regions, and people can see your data and download. So hopefully that gives an idea of how this game can help you to see the gaps. Now we're going to practice one more for the small collection grants. They said the objective was to employ cutting edge, you can see my face already going, digitization and scanning technologies to digitize 3,000 records and scan 1,500 specimens. And you can imagine Tina now going detail, detail, detail. And yes, that is exactly what I would say. So how to digitize, as cutting edge is not that detail. It sounds fancy, it's very AI and funky, but it's hollow. It doesn't give me the detail. I want to hear it. We all work on this thing. We all specialists in some sense that we work on these herbarium specimens. I want to hear, what does it mean? Are you going to take an image at what resolution and using what scanner or what camera? Give me the lens. I want to know, right? It's fantastic to see numbers. use numbers if you can. Give an estimate of what you're going to get through. How many specimens are you going to digitize, roughly? But why would it be 3,000 records and 1,500 specimens? It raises a question of why two different numbers? So are you meaning that you're going to take the text data from 3,000 records and take images of only half of them? Okay, but it's quite a complicated thing to have to explain. So maybe better to just do both for a set of specimens of a lesser number and use consistent terms. So here you're using records and specimens. Do we just mean specimens, right? I think that example gives yet again few little nuances of how you can be more clear. So the clearer you are, the easier it is for you to understand what you're doing, and we get convinced in the process. This is now from research grants. So Archie, I'm referring to research grants. So let's practice the same there. So we have objectives. Somebody said, and these are real examples, they said they want to have 1, 2, 3 aims. First is to study the phylogenetic relationships and the evolutionary history of yellow corollas in genus ABC, right? Then they wanted to determine the dominant chemicals in that genus. And then they wanted to explore the relationship between phytochemistry and phylogeny in genus. And I would say the following. So I've divided my kind of enhancement advice into two. So make your objective smaller, be more focused. So this is a year's worth of work, $2,000 when it's to do with research grants. What can you achieve with the IAPT grant itself? So let's focus. You could, for example, aim to collect species K, so I'm meaning species X, Y, and Z from Madidi Mountains, made-up area, for which only the type collection is currently known, so very poorly understood species, as this represents the likely second independent origin of yellow corollas in this genus. So it's really important to get this thing. So you may not get all the yellow corolla species, you may not be able to sample all species in the genus, but with this grant, you can get this one really rare endemic. And you could imagine an alternative version of the proposal where you focus on the phytochemical and metabolomic analysis. So you're going to apply for these funds to run these analyses to screen chemical diversity in this genus, right? And think about outputs. So if you run phytochemical and metabolomic analysis to screen chemical diversity, the output isn't so much a taxonomic, nomenclatural, floristic product. Doesn't sound perhaps so matching, right, with the funding. So that again can then help you to think the objective to better match with the grant conditions and the grant call. So here, if your output, something realistic in a year could be that you collect new specimens from these under-collected Madidi Mountains, and you distribute them across so and so many herbaria in so and so many countries. That's a great output, right? Identification guide, you produce an identification guide to all species of this genus, and using this online kind of system, the rapid field guides by Chicago Field Museum as an example, right? So once you then realize that, oh, that's something I want to aim for, you may refine your objectives, match it with the funding, and things start looking a bit better. Sabrina, are you wanting to have your microphone? Or is that a question to us, or is it? That might have been. Now we're going to move on to the plan part. So we have examples of how we plan to do these things. We have objectives and then a plan. This is how we're going to do it. And here there's an example from an existing, an application submitted, and they wanted to digitization and online database development. And they say each specimen will undergo a rigorous digitization process. You can see Tina's face going, detail, detail, let's not be AIE. So it's quite vague. Rigorous sounds really good, but what does it mean? We will utilize state-of-the-art, eye-rolling, imaging technology to capture high-resolution photographs of specimens from multiple angles, right? And just to expand on that and go straight into looking at that first point. So when we say multiple angles, you know, this part here, think what you're saying. So I understand if these are three-dimensional fossil specimens, we need three, multiple angles, but it was not the case here. These are flattened herbarium specimens. There is no need to do multiple angles imaging. So it sounds fancy, but it's pointless. I didn't at no point of this proposal understand what was the importance of this complicated business, right? So don't sound complicated for the sake of sounding scientific. Complicated does not equal good science. So here to simplify and think, what do you need to get the job done? Get it done, and then move on to the next. And explain who will do what. So here, there's a lot of rigorous digitization and state-of-the-art imaging, but it would be better too in the plan part to say who's going to do that. Are you going to train volunteers and students, or do you have staff that can be doing this as long as you get the support to give the materials and the equipment? So be specific who's going to do it and at what rate. So, for example, you could say we've already started, we've tested a protocol, and it's this amount of specimens that have been databased within a time frame of X. So from that experience, we anticipate this success, right? That gives confidence. If you have not yet started digitization or databasing, then maybe refer to a neighboring regionally important collection that you may contact, you may know, you may have mentors, colleagues there. Ask their advice. Say that based on success in institution X that we've exchanged knowledge with, we anticipate this. We're going to use process Y, they propose this, we're going to modify it to us, and now we are in a better starting point. I rarely see this, which is quite sad, right? If you think about it, we're all reinventing the wheel, right? If we are all digitizing and databasing, but you could ask advice and express it here in your proposal, in your plan. This is where we want this detail. Timetable is another. People might not think of how to do it. Here, there's an example from a submitted project. It was really quite nice format, month 1 to 2. This is what we're going to do, month 3 to 4. Great. Nice format. What I would enhance here is add numbers. So add some estimation of numbers based on previous experience, perhaps, that you've expressed in the plan, and then keep saying how you're learning from the process. So for example, adding that you're testing workflows and writing a final manual somewhere, because that might be something you want to be doing, right? You want to test the process first in months 1 and 2, and then really establish it in the middle. And by the end of it, you might want to write a manual so that once different volunteers join your project, you're able to just kind of learn and pass and aggregate that knowledge rather than losing it. So adding details like that, totally worth it. So this gives a clear structure how you could do your timetable and tips of how to make it even better. And now to budget. So Sabrina was asking a great question ahead of the seminar about budget. So here we have a submitted budget. We're giving some tips of how to enhance it, and I'm going to show you examples of submitted good examples in a bit. So first, we have a budget that gives 3 lines under 2 different categories and the sums in dollars. Great. But what it doesn't mention is any detail of what kind of camera equipment and what kind of travel costs. And I would say this is minimum you can do. So put that camera model would be X with lens, company Y, Is it Canon? Is it what resolution? And what kind of memory card type? So if you buy a camera these days, we need a memory card. Let's all be honest. They all have costs. So add it there. Do you need, in the online database, do you need a software license, or is it getting a desktop computer? What is this part? And then bus fares or car hire and petrol, whatever that travel cost is, specify it. That would again give much more robust feeling of these people know what they're doing. And to show examples, here is a budget using the template where they've added the details. So there's labor costs. Oh, there's an external hard drive with the detail of this is what I'm talking about. This kind of drive, it's going to cost this. Microscopy, or the labor costs are for database collation. Again, clear indication of what is this labor for. And labor costs for mounting and imaging of this. This is how much it costs per specimen, and this is how many herbarium specimens they're aiming to get. So that's great detail to see. And then there's postage of the specimens, and hopefully this matches with the objectives, right? So again, this is where the circularity comes in. There's another example just to give, there's different ways of doing this. Somebody applied for a research grant and it was all about travel. And they explained all the travel with details, so airline ticket, these are the directions where we're traveling to, this is the cost, and there's bus tickets, there's airline tickets, bus tickets, accommodation and food, great. So it gives a nice idea of what level of detail you need. And here, financial support received or expected in the near future. So it's great to understand that if you're already a PhD student, what is your current funding like? So express it there. Otherwise, it's very hard for us. If you talk about your PhD, you're doing fab things, we assume you get funding somehow, but don't let us assume. Explain what you do get funded for. If you're absolutely fully self-funded, then explain that, right? So do express what here is not a negative thing. To add something here is more clarifying of my PhD is funded by this, blah, 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 but it does not cover anything more than salary. Great, good to know. Right? So that brings us to those kind of examples that get us thinking, get us going, thinking how are these proposals enhanced and done properly. So I would love to open the floor for any comments, questions, experiences from Gustavo and Ana Paula and previous grantees. Any thoughts?
Mhm. Tina, we have a question from Sushandra Dutta in the chat.
Great.
Mhm.
Yes,
So,
I'm there.
Ana Paula already answered that.
Uh-huh.
It was about the specification you mentioned for the cloud storage.
Yeah, no, my
Mhm.
asking is, after I digitize, I have to store it somewhere. It may be in my herbarium. So how do I specify that?
How do you specify where you store the images?
Yeah. And what will be the amount required for me? Because, okay, I am in a college where I have my herbarium, which is in the index herbarium. So in that, I can buy a small storage space, but I am not understanding how do I justify that? How do I specify it that, okay, I want 600 DPI photograph in TIFF or JPEG, and this is my 400 to 600 KB each in the size of those photographs. Okay, and I will be databasing using the MS Excel. So everything has to go somewhere. How do I do that? I am not understanding.
So you're asking where do you add the detail?
Yeah. And how do I specify it? Okay, how much area? I'm not understanding if I have to keep 600 KB per photograph. I have 900 specimen. So 900, at least 900 multiplied by 600 KB of 600 DPI image. It is
So
quite a big.
So yes, that is the mathematics you'll have to do, right? To estimate the storage space you'd need, and then you see what it costs, and then you put it in the budget. Yeah. So
Okay, but then how people will get
it sounds like you're totally on it, and that is the way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But can I send it to Index Herbarium, because I am keeping it in the website of my institution, which hardly anybody will get in. How will it be used by a larger audience?
The images.
Yeah.
So the images, my personal advice is that you submit them to a aggregator. And that can be, so Ana Paula might be great example here. In her case, it might be a different local aggregator, but I can't see any issue why you can't submit them to GBIF as an example. It is the global level.
Okay.
For me
So
personally,
Index Herbarium, is that possible?
Index Herbarium is a list of herbaria. It is not a list of specimen images. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So that answers your question. It is a place to see who are herbaria in the world, in different cities, who to contact. If you're looking for specimen images, where would you go yourself to look for them? I would go to GBIF, right?
Yeah.
So try to think as a researcher, where would I go to see images? And that's often the best way to think it, because if you wouldn't know to go somewhere to look for images, how would somebody else, right? As senior researcher, if you're looking for knowledge of particular taxon, particular organism, type specimens, where do you go in your organisms, right? So try to think that way. And I think the answer, ultimately, one source is GBIF, right? But there might be middle steps. So I'm going to pass now to Ana Paula to walk through perhaps one example.
Yeah, in my case, I put all my database in a Excel file. So and the images we put in the Google Drive, but university is free for us, for institution, and then we work on the images and send for the species link we have in Brazil. The species link is about the CRIA. I don't know, Gustavo can help me. Is a platform that you have in Brazil. You can disponibilize our data. So the herbarium I work is linked to this platform in Brazil. I don't know if in your country you have the same platform or the same.
Need to search. Thank you for your suggestion. It is really helpful. Thank you so much, Ana Paula. And the next.
Oh, good. Yeah. Thanks. It is hard. I think, Suchantra, your question really raises that we have to start calculating all this, like one image is this much, where does it go? It feels overwhelming, right? Because we're not technically equipped. So these virtual herbaria, I call them regional virtual herbaria, like Species Link, CRIA Species Link in Ana Paula's case. It's now for the whole Latin America. Well, I say Latin America. What I mean is South America. It is acting it more and more, Ana Paula, which is amazing to me that they used to be Brazil specific and they're now expanding because they're so good at it and they are so needed. And so it's becoming this real needed hub so that local tiny herbaria don't have to think of a solution. Because your website, if I'm as a researcher want images of Solanum from South America, I don't go to 100 different websites. I'm going to go to one and then benefit and then send questions to the local curators maybe, or through updating my data on that portal, they get my data directly. So it's like this quickest way of communicating through these portals. So if there's anything like that regionally for you, great. If there isn't, then I don't think GBIF is impossible. I think it's completely doable. So,
and what about the other one? There is one more database, iNaturalist. Is that also possible?
iNaturalist, to me, looks like a place where if you have images from the field, Great. And people generally submit there. Fantastic. And they can even link them to individual collections. Fantastic. But do
Yes.
they submit and do I, as a researcher, look for herbarium specimens in iNaturalist? No.
No,
That could be me, but
definitely.
I'm trying to generate discussion on and ways of finding answers to yourself, like a process. So any thoughts on iNaturalists? So Ajit or Gustavo, anybody in the audience, where would you look for herbarium images?
It's
In
the
your
the thing you were saying.
GBIS.
Was that Deepa? So I'm going to pass to Gustavo first, then Ajit, and then Deepa. Yeah,
Yeah.
No, sorry,
Gustavo.
no, I was just saying that it's the thing you were saying. I naturally is not for specimens, and so Jipa, you can go. Sorry.
Yeah. No, we search like Royal Botanic Garden Kew or Edinburgh or BM, like individual this thing, and GBIF. Yeah,
Hmm.
for species name. Then we have Indian
Okay.
Virtual Herbarium. So there also we have, yeah, IVF, that one is also there. So that one also we check. Then like if we know the collector's name and their deposited like herbaria, so individual, then we can also go for loan. So online loan also we get for some duration, so that like they give us access, so we can check the herbarium sheet. So that way, even from Beijing herbarium also I got the access. So anywhere I need, I write to the curator of that herbarium, or sometimes even director, then they pass it on to the curator, and that way we get the access. Yeah, thank you.
Nice, thank you. Ajit and then John, because I saw, John, your comment on the chat box is very worth expressing. So Ajit first and then John.
Yeah, so while doing my PhD, I remember like referring to JSTOR plans and GBIF, like they tend to be some kind of aggregators. But for specific specimens, I used to refer to the particular herbarium website, or like the Chinese virtual herbarium, or I think recently India also started this virtual herbarium. But I think they are mostly like using the specimens that are already housed at these Botanical Survey of India's, the different centers. And I believe it is actually a good idea to have a website where you can actually host these, or you can actually connect to the regional sort of, some sort of major institution, and see if you can actually contribute these, so that the visibility would be greater, I believe. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ajit. This is a nice, I like the idea. Start a place where all can generally deposit their or upload their images. I think
Sure.
one can start with it, but the cost will be different, and this can definitely not be fitted into the small collection grant budget.
Yeah, yeah, that's the challenge, right?
Because for us, my proposal and everything is ready. My last question where I got stuck is this. Okay, I will give a space in my own herbaria, and I have paid around $100 for software cloud storage. Maybe I will get 1 year backup. What after that? Who will come to my small institution website? Why should they come? Because I have never gone to a small institution. I have already always gone for my search to a bigger herbarium and wrote to the director or curator, whoever, who will write to me.
So if I understand your question, the challenge being a small place, how are you visible enough?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Ajit, did you?
So I think so. First of all, you are in the process of like getting data, starting to pull the images. So my
Hmm.
suggestion is to have a solid state drive or a hard disk, so where you can actually combine all the photographs for the time being, and then
Yeah.
later when you want to sort of expand, you can think of like these websites and all, or even sort of start collaborating with the major herbaria or institutions. I think there are sort of other consortiums like the Indian eFlora of India and all. So they used to have these photographs where you can actually provide, but those are
Yes,
like
that's a good idea.
field photographs. So for
Hmm.
herbariums, I think those kind of ventures, I think, need to be established soon, like the Reflora platform in Brazil, or, similar sort of, platforms need to be started. Yeah, that's what I feel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a nice idea because this time I have also had a query with the Indian Virtual Herbarium, but right now they do not have any because they have so many collections. They are busy in doing their digitization process and uploading it. So
And
it
Mhm.
was really
yeah,
not a good answer.
I would really raise the option of when you do the Ajit's suggestion of putting it on a hard drive and then backing
Yes.
obviously that somehow. The option there is to upload those images on that hard drive that you do generate with this money into GBIF, and once they are there, they are being backed up, right? That is your backup, right?
Yeah.
If that
So
makes sense.
I do not write in my proposal that I will be going for cloud uploading or something. I will just say I will put it in a hard drive.
It's so nobody can tell what you should be doing. What we're saying is that is somewhat a stable option because that erases the what next. You are
Yeah.
backing it up if you do it on a hard drive. You do have them on the hard drive. You have access yourself. Yes, eventually
Hmm.
that hard drive will die, right? We all know that. It's not
Hmm.
forever, but it's an alternative to the cloud because the cloud is the problem. Then what? Eventually
Or
what,
maybe
right?
a Google Drive. Maybe a Google Drive.
Sure, right? So these are options to consider, and then always think of, are you putting them as a backup somewhere? And that could be GBIF. And I can't see why they wouldn't take them on. If I understand, you can submit data sets with quite basic information, and then they are there as a backup whilst you're
Yes.
trying to make it more local, regionally visible as a collection through perhaps the Indian options, which sound
Yeah.
like much more relevant perhaps in a bigger scale. But if that
Yes.
gives you general guidance, I like
Yes.
that
Yes.
John was pointing out the fact that iNaturalist is much more for different things. So I really appreciated John's input there. Any other questions, thoughts?
Yeah, Tina, Talita asked about if she can see it's possible to use the both grants to ask exclusively for lab work.
Exclusively for lab work.
For both grants.
So for the small collections grants, what would be an example of an objective that is exclusively lab work?
Yeah.
So I need a little bit background on that. I work with bryophytes, so that I don't, right. So if I'm kind of brainstorming here, Talita, are you thinking of applying for small collections grant to say we have a small collection X and we have lots of bryophytes, we need to identify them. To identify them, I need to work in the lab to get them names, to identify them better. In other words, you're creating them, you're enhancing their, yeah, totally, that would make sense. But you would have to verbalize it differently, right? You would have to really work on saying, what's the product here? That would be enhanced collections with better curation. So yes, for curating them, and if that is what you need lab work for, good to go, right? And you justify. The same idea there for the research grant, absolutely. But there your output wouldn't be enhanced collections, right? Your output would be a checklist or something, right? So that would be my first gut reaction. If it's simply to do a phylogeny of X, it starts getting a little bit, I would say it's a question that comes up in the research grant. If a researcher applies for the $2,000 to do a phylogeny of a group X, because it doesn't have taxonomic aspects or outputs, it might be scored less than something that has more of taxonomic outputs, that revises taxonomy, provides morphological descriptions, does a checklist. That gets more points because it's actually stuff that you can only do with IAPT money. So if that helps to get the nuance around the word lab work. Yeah. Matthew, I can see your hand up. Cool.
Thank you. I would like to ask a question. Would it be methodologically sound to focus on the morphologically similar species complex rather than the entire genus and apply the whole genome data to test whether these taxa represent distinct species or intra-specific variation?
So if I understood your question right, you're asking in the research grant, you're kind of proposing two options and asking which is better. So one option would be that you look at all the species in a genus in a given area, let's say, or in a subgenus or something, versus focusing on a really species complex, species that are really morphologically similar and trying to resolve them. And specifically there, using genomic data. Is that correct? Yeah. So I would say that the amount of money available, the $2,000, obviously can be used towards sequencing, but it can be not enough to do absolutely detailed enough study to answer your question in a species complex that has lots of variation, right? So I would say realistically, you would probably be needing some existing data already to be there. So you need to think what the money is enough for. But absolutely, both are valid. You could do both. You need to decide what is better for your system. Does that make sense? So I personally, if Gustavo or Ana Paula can help here, having reviewed these before, I can't see as a reviewer or in the discussions of reviewer comments I see either of them being punished on, if you justify what's needed, like for example, if I recall right, John's proposal is in a species complex where sequencing was needed. Is that correct? So it was justified to use molecular tools to stabilize taxonomy, and there was an element of species complex, right?
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, I was actually typing in the chat, but yeah, my study group is also a species complex. So what I did was I only targeted one species that is also they reported it as an endemic, but based on my initial evidences and data, I think it is a it is just a morphological variation of another species. So yeah, I would suggest maybe focusing on one or a few species in that complex because it could be quite a handful to study and to examine, especially in the molecular and morphological parts. And maybe choose one that has an implication on resource management in your country, or one that has maybe economical implications. Maybe that could also be good to look at.
Nice. Hopefully that helps. So there isn't, Matthew, there isn't a black and white answer, but it's really to think what would be doable in the amount, justifiable in the group, you knowing the research problem. And you could even verbalize that there are these two alternatives I've considered, and I think, hence I'm applying with this because this is one step towards the longer term goal, and that would sync well. Reviewers would go, oh, I get it. This is this bit, great, and there is a longer term aim, great, but we're funding this, great.
Mhm.
Great, you're welcome.
Gina, Mateus said that he has two questions. So, Mateus, if you want to open your
Hi,
mic.
everyone.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Tina, for your presentation. My name is Mateus from Rio de Janeiro Botanical Garden in Brazil. I'm a PhD student. So I intend to apply for the research grant. And my question is about the budget. Do we have to put the budget in the research project too, or we can just send it in the spreadsheet? Because in the topics of the research project, there is one specific about the budget. So do we have to include this in the research project or just send a spreadsheet?
Understood. I definitely as a spreadsheet, always as a spreadsheet. So you're saying, should you mention something in the actual written proposal of 3 pages because there's a subheading? I would always say something about it to clarify how does this sit in the, like in your case, you're a PhD student, right? So how does
Yes.
this apply £2,000 to use one sentence, if nothing more, to clarify how does this £2,000 you're applying, for which you see detail in the budget sheet, you don't need to list them in the written report, how does this sit in your bigger project? And why isn't it funded already with your PhD scholarship, as an example? To give that text, I would encourage
Very
for
well.
that. Does that help?
Okay, thank
Yeah.
It helps a lot. Thank you very much. And my second question, very quickly, I was really excited about to put the images of our group in the research project. But how can we do that? Because we have just 3 pages to put our entire project, or
Yeah.
at least some parts of our PhD.
Right. So you need to express in the 3 pages what you're applying for the $2,000, right? Not
Yes.
the entire
Yeah.
PhD, right? But in
Yes,
that 3
yes.
pages, what I'm proposing is that if you can think of how to make an image that tells enough information that it's worth it. I know it's a
Okay.
challenge. I do
Yes.
understand. But I would say that image can be totally worth it.
Okay. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
It doesn't have to be there. We're not requiring it, but whenever I see one, I've never seen one wasted. Does that make sense? I'm always thinking that was worth adding, right?
Yes.
Any other
Thank you
views there?
very
But
much.
I'm getting nodding from other reviewers, so yeah. Then we
Okay.
have hand up from Sabrina and hand up from John. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I would just like to comment on Mateo's question on the pictures.
Yeah,
So
great. Then first.
yeah, what I did on my proposal is that I included an external link to the pictures that I uploaded. So it saves space, and you can just hyperlink that. And I think you should just say this is an external link to my figure, so that I think that could help, so that you will not be pressed with the space for the 3 pages.
Oh,
I
very well.
would, however, say that for reviewers, clicking that link doesn't always happen. So I would say adding the photo doesn't mean you can get funded without an image directly in there, right? So it just shows the diversity, but I would really even push, you know.
Thank you. Thank you.
Then to Sabrina. Sabrina, are you there? Or was that an old
Yes.
hand, perhaps? Yeah, great. Over to you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a very small aquatic and the only aquatic herbarium of Bangladesh. So today I just came across with John Michael last Mosso of Marine Science Institute, I think so. I was just hoping, is there any possibility the macroalgae of the Bangladesh are not actually well identified? Can I ask, but can I write up a grant proposal for identify? I want to collect, I will collect them definitely. That's a different cost to be added in the budget. But is it possible that John Michael Lastmoso can held a hand of collaboration if I get the grant for identifying the microalgae of Bangladesh?
So you're asking a question whether could you propose, add in your proposal, and this would be
Yes.
the small collection grant,
Yes.
where you would say we hold a macroalgae collection in our herbarium small collection. We'd like to enhance the identification and create
Yes.
these collections. We're budgeting this number of dollars to bring an expert in.
Yes.
Yeah. If you have that expert going, yes, 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 I want to collaborate. Yes, 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 we'd like to see that. That is a positive
Okay.
thing. You're enhancing collections. Rarely done. I never see that in proposals, but absolutely fantastic idea. Yeah.
Okay.
And John
Thank you.
Lastimoso is in the audience, so we may branch out to link you to be in email contacts, right?
Okay. Okay.
Sabrina, I'm open to collaborating. Bangladesh has an extremely understudied macroalgal resources, especially on brown algae. So it would
Yeah.
be nice to collaborate. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd like
I'll
to add,
I'll
yeah.
I'll send my email in the chat box
Okay,
if you want.
thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to see proposals on algae and fungi, including lichens, and bryophytes and ferns. Even I would expand here, like anything not angiosperm stands out, and it gets like extra points again. Make that case of these are often organisms that aren't well represented in herbaria. They're not in good state. Their taxonomy may be less understood. Do highlight that, and that is seen as much more of an area of need because these organisms simply do not have enough and adequate taxonomic experts. So if you're one wanting to be training or you're one collection that is keeping this up, they do get extra points and scores. So do highlight this. And we are so excited seeing that happening. So
May I ask a question, please?
yes.
Yeah, my collection includes the Hyacinthus family, especially Ledeboria and Dipkadi. So in that, during my work, I have segregated South African Ledeboria revoluta and Indian Ledeboria hyacinthina. So in the audience, is there anyone whom I can collaborate with who are having the collection of Madagascar hyacinthus and I can collaborate with them for Indian part of it?
So you're looking for if there are any experts in the
Is
audience
there,
who work on
is
hyacinth,
there any audience? Yeah, in the audience, yeah.
and it's Hyacinthaceae. Is that the family?
Yeah.
Sorry if I get this right. So
Yeah,
this is a
family
monocot.
now it is in Asparagaceae. Now
Yeah.
it is in Asparagaceae. Yeah. But
So
my
it's a
group is Ledeboria especially, and because South Africa is the center of origin for these two groups, and I believe there are a lot of speciation is happening. And India, we have lot of plants. People are working, but recently in 2025 we have segregated, and now you can see in Poyo that Ledeboria hyacinthina has got a specific accepted status. So, however, my research is not over. Is there anyone from South Africa who would like to collaborate? May I take this opportunity to ask?
I can see how the previous question has kind of spirited a good topic here. I love it. So just to Suchandra, to let me answer it perhaps briefly so that we don't run out of time. We don't have anybody from South Africa who registered, right? We have people from African continent, but I saw country names Rwanda, Nigeria, which would not qualify. I can't imagine them having similar ecosystems. However, I could be wrong. So let people answer in the chat box and raise their hands. But I just wanted to say this is still a small group and a small audience. I would just do that kind of Google browsing taxonomic literature. Who could be people to get in touch, see if they'd like to find those right experts. So very lucky to John and the previous speaker, not Sabina, I'm giving a wrong name, but for them to be in the same room right now here in Zoom. But unlikely you will find your Hyacinthaceae expert here. So I would do that kind of taxonomic browsing of who's published in this family from South Africa. They may not be based in South Africa. Sometimes we have that in taxonomy. Or get in touch with Big Herbaria in South Africa to ask, are there experts that could, I would defo, because it's a great idea to invite people coming to your collections.
Yeah.
I love it.
And may
ask,
I,
when was this?
In my small collection grant, can I have a component of collecting the specimen where I have a knowledge gap? Suppose I could not get us a fruit of some specimen, something is missing, which would help in identification of that particular group in a better way. Can I have a component of that in my small collection grant?
I would answer it that saying that's bridging on the research to me
Okay.
to a degree. So if it's just one collection or two collections, you can see how that's very hard to compete with a person who's enhancing collections in more powerful way, affecting the entire collection more, if that makes sense. So at that point, maybe consider carefully, like, is this really giving the biggest impact for $3,000 for the entire collections? So, and if you feel like it's not really enhancing the collections as a whole or so much, it's more answering the research question of what are these species, how do you delimit them, then it's more on the research grant. If that helps to, yeah. But absolutely you could, if there's something, let's say this collection is the biggest collection of macroalgae in country X, but we're lacking collections of group Y, and you're going to the field to collect them to increase your collections, that is justified. Yes, we see that, we give points for that.
Thank you so much.
You're
It
welcome.
was definitely a very good insight for me to apply for the better way.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. We're coming to the 1.5 hours, which obviously people's attention span starts running out. So I'd just like to raise any more questions, or if you want to express as you're leaving, I know people are coming already, maybe left, anything that's been really good and useful, that gives us great feedback to know what to keep hold on in the next round. So any things you really found useful as your last little thoughts, leave them in the chat box. It's been really nice to have interactive audience.
Tina has one question. Maja Javanovic, she wants to know what procedure for joining of Jackie virtual herbaria. I don't know about this, so if you have some procedure, she wants to know.
I saw that question. So Jacques is Jacquin or Jacquin. It's a European old kind of I don't know that much about it. I use it. So it's an aggregator of certain herbaria from Central Europe. They are often very type rich and historic. So I use them to look for types, type specimens. So I don't know whether they are open to add another herbarium, or are they geographically defined that it has to be from Central Europe? But it's a good question to ask. We may not have the answer here amongst our audience, but going to their website might already give an answer, or contacting one of the herbaria who's part of that through Index Herbariorum and chasing if that is somebody's wish. I can't see as a natural link for an Indian-based herbarium to add specimens. That doesn't seem something they do, to give context to my understanding of the system, but does not mean I know. If anybody knows, feel free to respond, but it might be out of scope for this audience to know.
We can try with Indian Virtual Herbaria, which is done by BSI. And yeah, Ministry of Information, they are maintaining it. So BSI also joined hand with that department. So if the collections are like proper and authentic, like properly identified, correctly identified, and images are of good quality, we can approach. But if it is a huge number, I don't know. But for 1,000 like that, they can help us. Yeah.
Great. Sounds the logical next step, right? But whether that they are yet ready for it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Shows the point of coming together online, even these days that everything's recorded, but actually this kind of thing doesn't happen. And that great idea of inviting people to your collections. We've never heard it. This is where we heard it first. So if you are now using it, worth coming today.
We have submitted our type specimens, so now it is being accessed all over the world. But like large amount, we have not yet given. Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you very much. We're going to have another one tomorrow. So those who are going to join us today to promote these grants again, see you tomorrow. But those who I met today for the first time, absolute pleasure. And hope to see your applications coming in.
Thanks a lot. We are grateful to IAPT for the grant and as well as for the opportunity and the platform. It's a wonderful experience and learning experience. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Deepa, for joining us today.